Alright. So we are streaming. Again, I'm going to keep working on this piece. Got back from a number of stuff to do today, and it's time to get back to work, at least editing. I've got a bunch of stuff to do tonight, so again, I'm going to keep working on this piece.
Whoa!
Got back from a number of stuff to do today. Mute that, so that way you don't have to hear that ridiculousness all over again. Sorry about that. Okay, so, gonna get back at it. I think we're gonna do music next. I think that's the next thing for us to do. And then from there, we are going to start adding in B-roll and the other stuff, the other information that needs to go along with this, because it needs more, obviously. It's not done. So we're gonna work all the way through it. So the first thing we're gonna do is music, and I think I have a good idea of what I want to use. It needs to be something heavy, maybe not so light. All this music is from Digital Juice. I have all of the Digital Juice, access to Digital Juice. I use that for all of my stock footage, all of my everything. It's a great service, and this is all the things that I've gotten over the years because I have the license to do so. So, I'd found this one that I really liked. It's a little heavy, but I want to see how it played out before I ended up inserting it. And we basically have time for 2 tracks. That's basically the way it's going to end up working. For me, whenever I'm editing audio, I always try to make the first portion of it like minus 20, minus 19, minus 21, somewhere in that range.
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I'm licensed with the state of Tennessee to...
High blood pressure, and we all understand that.
Yeah, that doesn't really fit too well. It's a little dark. I think that's fine. It's a little too dramatic. This is more thoughtful. I like this.
Certainly have parts of your brain that cannot be functioning correctly, and
I think that's it. No. That's fine. And then we're left kind of like a tail out here.
To acknowledge things as they're happening,
go ahead and blend
because we're
these together
thinking,
now.
well, it'll just get better, or maybe this will go away. It's almost you're afraid of if you acknowledge or perhaps harmful.
It's fine. I think we can do a little bit better job on the blend though, because obviously the track ends, you know, like back here or whatever. Most people aren't gonna know that.
Events as being threatening or perhaps.
Cool with that. All right. Yeah. A little too light. So we'll do it this way because we will. And this is one of the things that I like to do with music, at least. Let me turn this down just a little bit. I like to blend tracks together mid-track if I can.
what it is that we do there. Program and what it is that we do there.
Cool. All right, so we got a good fade on that.
Program and what it is that we do there.
End. Perfect. All right. So we got that. So now I'm going to try to find a spot where I can match these two. And I'm not far off. Like, I'm not far off at all that I can blend these two together. And then I'm going to set this here and then move this up. We're going to move that in, and then we're going to move that in. And then we're going to try to find...
room safely. They certainly can get treatment there.
There we go.
If you
I'm cool
don't
with
feel
that.
like you can get them to an...
I'm great with that. All right, so that's the music. Music bed set.
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I'm licensed with the state of Tennessee to do counseling and therapy with teens, adults, and couples is who I specialize with. Talking about mental health and the importance of mental health. I mean, I think a lot of times when we think of being healthy, we think of getting enough sleep and having a proper diet, getting enough exercise. But there's also that mental component.
Nice.
If you're not mentally healthy, if you're not able to manage it.
Okay. All right, we got that locked in. Now, the next thing for me, at least, is titles, because that takes, I mean, not a long time, but it's annoying. All right, so, and we usually go with what they say. And let me go get the spelling of his name so that that is correct. if I know the person personally, then I will actually just go get their Facebook profile and I will copy their name that way. Because if you don't do that, you never want to misspell someone's name. Like, that's unacceptable to me. And this is the spelling of his name. That is the correct spelling. All right. And then he goes by psychotherapist. And then we're going to say...
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I'm licensed with the state of Tennessee to do counseling and therapy with teens, adults, and couples is who I specialize with. Talking about mental health and the importance of mental health. I mean, I think a lot of times when we think of
now
being healthy...
We have a standardized process for the show that I'm working on. So the text is always end up being 20. The font is NutraText Light SC. NutraText Light SC. Left align, placement, bottom left, 5%. And then from there, if we need to add in a drop shadow to make it pop off the screen a little bit, that's fine too. Not a problem. So we're going to do that. That's exactly where we're going to leave this.
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical...
So the second they introduce themselves...
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical psychotherapist.
Perfect.
I'm licensed with the state of Tennessee.
And we're going to move that over just a little bit.
My name is John Nichols. I'm a clinical psychotherapist. I'm licensed with the state of Tennessee to do counseling and therapy with teens, adults, and couples is who I specialize with. Talking about mental health and the
Perfect. All right, we're going to do that. All right, now it's time to go get this one. All right, so I'm just going to take it. I'm going to make a copy of it. And that's fine. And then we're going to change this. Go get teaser. Alright. And then see what her title is.
Hi, my name is Letizia Baxter Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified. Today I want to talk to you guys about the stigma of mental health.
Whoa.
And hi, my name is Letizia Baxter Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified. Today I want to talk to you guys about the stigma of mental health. And
okay, so we're going to do this a different way. We're going to say nurse practitioner. And unfortunately these don't have spell check, so I'm going to go spell check this right quick in another window that you can't see because I got a whole other bag of things working on this side and I really don't care. That is the correct practitioner. I missed a thing. There we go. And that's why spelling's important.
Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified. Today I want to talk to you guys about the stigma of
nurse practitioner. Psychiatric.
Letizia Baxter Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
Psychiatric. Oh, that is so bad. I'm really bad at spelling. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. There we go. There's that. I'm going to put a comma in there because I feel like I need one. And I may be wrong. It may not need a comma. But I'm going to put a comma in there because that's what I want to do and you can't stop me. Yeah. So there's that. So, got that done. Titles are pretty much done. Now, we'll reintroduce them again later in the segment because this is a long one. This is over 7 minutes. This is 7:38, so 7 minutes, 30 seconds. That's a long segment, especially for our show. So I'll end up using those titles again, but for the moment, I'm not really worried about it. Mainly, I just want to get them introduced, and that's pretty much what we're doing in this first minute.
Hi, my name is Letizia Baxter Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified. Today I want to talk to you guys about the stigma of mental health and how you're able to get around that if you're having problems with that. You know, we all understand that sometimes you may have problems with your heart or your kidneys or your lungs. So you could have...
Okay, so now it's time for me to start making some individual cuts and switching up the shots and making it more visually interesting before I start adding in the B-roll. just in case that I need to do that sort of thing. Alright. So, here we go.
Talking about mental health and the importance of mental health. I mean, I think a lot of times when we think of being healthy, we think of getting enough sleep and having a proper diet, getting enough exercise. But there's also that.
See, that's a great place to cut. So we will flip that around, do that, and then we will reverse this shot here. So that way,
then everything else falls apart too. I think that there's a pretty big stigma still nowadays with people seeking help for mental health issues. What I tell people.
Okay, so we can cut here because we're already going to flip the shot anyway, so it doesn't really matter, and that's going to save us a little bit of time about everything on the back end, and I'm going to have to redo the music that I just did and everything else, but that's okay because that's easy to fix. All of that's super easy to fix. I just trim a little bit off somewhere else and it's fine. Let me just make sure there's not a breath in here.
Health issues. What I tell people.
Perfect.
Issues. What I tell people in my practice is everybody has stuff. We all have things that we carry around with us that are not working for us anymore, and I feel like one of the benefits of counseling is to help get one of the benefits.
Perfect. So it's a good match on action. You definitely know that he's still looking the same way.
One of the benefits of counseling, and I feel like one of the benefits of counseling is to help get these naturally occurring moods and behaviors that are getting out of whack and putting them back into that normal range where it's working for you.
Hi, my name is Letizia
So we're
Baxter
trimming
Smith.
off time as
One
we
of
go
the
too, which
benefits
is
of
really nice
counseling
because
is
you
to
don't
help
want it
get-
to sit in one place any too long, especially with these sorts of things. You want it to move.
One of the benefits of counseling is to help get these naturally occurring moods and behaviors that are getting out of whack and putting them back into that normal range where it's working for you.
Hi, my name is Letizia.
I feel like these got normalized the wrong way. I mean, they probably didn't, but yeah.
Benefits of counseling is to help get these.
Hi, my name is Letizia Baxter Smith, and I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified.
Okay, so we know these cuts are good.
We all understand that sometimes you may have problems with your heart or your kidneys or your lungs. So you could have high blood pressure, and we all understand that that may require diet, exercise, certain medications, and we're willing to do our part for the most.
Okay, so I like all of that. I think all that can be one shot.
Certain medications, and we're willing to do our part for the most part to try to improve that. But for some reason, when it comes to the brain, we consider that to be a whole nother ballgame, but it really is the same. You certainly have parts of your brain that cannot be functioning correctly, and there are ways that we can help treat that and help improve you, or help improve those symptoms. So when you think about that and help improve you.
Okay, another cut because she corrected herself, but it sounded fine the first time. I don't think anyone's gonna fault you for, saying that someone can that it'll correct them, because it will correct them.
So when you think about that, there are medications, there are therapies, there are behavioral modifications. All of those types of things can help out in the process.
Okay, well, I think the things that we think about most when we think of mental health, we think of like depression and anxiety. People that are suffering from depression.
Okay.
People that are suffering from depression, things to look out for would be withdrawing.
Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to insert some text. And I haven't decided how I want to do that yet. I can technically do it as a credit roll and have it roll up screen, which is a fine way to do it. I could also do it as individual text tiles, but I feel like that's going to be a lot, and I don't really want to go that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert it as a credit roll. Now, the problem with this is that it's going to try to attempt to throw off everything for some reason, and I don't know why it does this. It's kind of weird, actually. So I have to say, scrolling on transparent, because we're going to put another video track up under that, and I don't know what that's going to be yet. I'll go look for that here in a few. And I should have already downloaded that. Whoops. So they're all going to be either title or sub-item texts. And right now you can't see it because it's not on screen yet. But here's what it's going to look like right now. But that's not the way we're going to keep it. It probably needs to be on white or black. And since the other one's white, we're going to go with white. And then we're going to change it to our standard font, which is NutraText Lite SC. Always NutraText Lite SC. That is, for this show, it is always NutraText Lite SC. Because that's the show, what the show's designed with. So just like this. And right here we can say symptoms of depression. Because he's talking about depression. Alright, see how that updated? Alright, and then we're going to put in each thing one at a time. And we'll do that as we go. In the meantime, I think I'm going to try to find a background, maybe. And I can use Digital Juice for this. But I think I'm going to move that over here and then keep going with it as we go. Been doing this 16 minutes already. This thing takes a lot of time. This is the Digital Juice storefront. Like I said, I have a bunch of the ability to go pull multiple things, which is fine. Oh, I kind of like that. That's cool. It's a different look. It's just, oh, I like that. Okay, we'll use this. Next. And I'm not going to show you what it is until you see it. Oh. It'll be fine. QuickTime Movie's fine. It doesn't necessarily matter. Putting it in any other format, for me at least, doesn't really work out so well. And of course, it's got to have some other stuff to go along with it. Alright, so we got that. We already have our signs and symptoms of depression pulled up over here. And we can start copying and pasting those in one at a time. Now, here's the thing. We're going to have to change how long this goes. So I will start, and this is at, we got to do some timing things. So at 2:14 is when he starts talking about this.
Not turning them. When we see people who suffer from anxiety.
See, I've put in a cut here. So this needs to go over to here. 2:59, 2:14. So this needs to be around 2:59, 2:14, 45 seconds ish, and we'll play with it from there and see how well that works.
We could expect to.
We may move the start of this up. Like I said, is it 2?
Withdrawing. Some
2:10.
depression, things to look out for would be withdrawing.
It is definitely 2:14 on the dot, so we're gonna move that over.
Socially, you know.
And this is gonna go faster when we start adding stuff too, so that's kind of the thing. Ugh. Okay, so we're gonna have to do multiple lines, and that's fine, because I do want it to scroll like that. And I may cut off a sentence midway through just to make it fit better on here. Always use the Oxford comma. Alright, next one. This is going to be... I'm going to add this in on the front end. And there's a lot of work that goes into this. I mean, especially even if you're just copying and pasting info, it's still a lot of work. Okay. Let's see. We know the breakpoint probably needs to be and or. So let's go ahead and capture this. Move it down. Okay. This should all fit on one line. Let's see though. Yep. Okay. So we are going to make sure that with each one of these we're putting a the dash out there to denote that it's the first line of that thing. Alright, there's you. And then there's you. And I don't know why this window is so small. I guess I can come down. Oh, we already did that one. Ah! Delete. Okay, copy. All of this I'm getting from is WebMD. This is all WebMD info. So excessive sleeping is going to be a thing. So we cut it off here. And then we add in that. Okay, we only got a few more of these, thankfully. Again, all time consuming, all important pieces of the puzzle, though. And as you can see also with some of these, I'm trying to do this a little slower than I normally would, only so that you can see how this goes. So I'm going to cut this off at once pleasurable. And once pleasurable. Goes that way. Cool, look at that. Boom. Now you see how it works. Alright, let's do it again. This is going to be a really long one, so we may need 3 lines for this. You have to think about this line by line. That's the other trick too. All right, so we need to go to cramps. Cramps and delete all that. We need to pick up this one. Head on over to cramps. Delete that. So we can move on along. So the cramps line is too long. So now we need to go digestive problems. That. Okay. There we go. Come on down. So this is gonna move real fast when we get in. This is a lot of lines. All right. Got that. And then the last line, at least for this portion of it. And now let's see how fast this thing's going to move.
People who
it's
don't
about
seem to
right.
be finding pleasure.
Okay with that.
Decrease in appetite, a decrease in just normal self-care, like not wanting to shower or groom themselves, not really concerned.
Because we're going to change that 45 to more of like 59 and see where that puts us.
People who suffer from anxiety, withdrawing socially, people who...
Cool. Alright, so now we are going to import a beautiful background. Ta-da!
Socially, people who don't seem to be finding pleasure in things that they normally did. People...
Let's go to the end.
When we see people who suffer from anxiety, when we see people who suffer from anxiety...
So I want to end that a little bit before that. However, I can start this a little bit before that and move that down. And that should give me enough pad room to get a little bit farther up on there.
See people who suffer from anxiety, really concerned about their appearance. When we see people who suffer from anxiety...
Okay, and I chose the blue because it looks like depression. I mean, if you've been depressed, blue is, I think, is an accurate color. I have dealt with depression. Blue seems to be a fine thing to list it as. Alright, so there's one thing that I'm going to have to do that most people probably wouldn't even think of at this point. I'm going to have to add in another video track. Insert generated media. I'm going to need something to darken up that background because if I'm using white text, and I can use black text. That's fine. But it's going to stand off more if I use white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a solid color. Not white, obviously, because that's going to drown out everything else. But I'm going to make it black. And then from here, I'm going to move that over. I'm going to make it the same length as my background. I'm going to use the exact same transition time to do that. I'm going to bring that over. Same transition time. Well, it looks like I lost my transition time on this one too, and that's okay.
Withdrawing socially.
So I'll let that roll in a little bit farther. Now with this one, I don't need it to be black. I just don't. So I'm going to back it off with my opacity over here. And then it'll really make those words
withdrawing socially
without
people
having
who
to
don't seem to be finding pleasure in things that they normally people
completely destroy
like isolating
the awesome background that I've chosen because it is pretty awesome. I'm
see
pretty
things
impressed
like
with it.
maybe a drop
like
in
tiny blue
grades when they
crystals.
normally did well.
So I'm pretty happy with where that is right now.
Themselves not really concerned about.
Except I see an error. It's going to be down here. Keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. This one needs thing. There we go. Okay.
Their appearance. When we see people who suffer from anxiety, one of the things that we think about it.
Okay, so now I need something for anxiety, so I'm gonna have to go look that up, and I think I've got a good idea what I want to do for that. I just need a red color because I feel like that's more of a. And I can make it match in kind of the same vein. Symptoms for anxiety are less, thankfully. So there's not as many of them, so it makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Maybe not the anxiety portion of it, but hey, the listing of it. Okay. Alright, so since I already have this all set up, I'm just going to copy and paste this over again, kind of the same way. Since I have this set up, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this over again. I'm going to do the exact same thing. But I'm going to shorten everything, of course, because it's not going to be the same thing, obviously. It will be ridiculous to think so, because it's not going to be the same length at all. It's going to be shorter, significantly shorter. So I'm looking at from 303 to 331. So we're going to change this to around, I estimated 45 seconds. It was around 45 seconds. I need an extra 15, so I'm going to assume I need an extra 15-ish on this one, so I'm going to go 35. That's going to bring that to here. That's going to move that over and pretty much put me at the exit point where I want to be to transition into the next thing. That's the idea. Like, you just want these to be transition points, hopefully. And that's a little too, I can actually go back a little bit more.
One of the things that we think about is like chronic worry.
Okay, so now we're going to fix this, fix that, move that over. All right, move this down to where that needs to be about right, meow-ish. Do this about right, meow-ish. That's good. You never want the words to completely leave the screen, at least in my opinion, because it becomes visually uninteresting for the most part. And we're still going to need a little bit of a transition period back in, so let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's move you over to where the exit is. And I'm trying to cover some cuts too when I'm doing this. It just makes it a little bit easier to deal with visually, because I don't have to worry about the transition about how.
So
we got
when it
back
comes
to
to a crisis,
See?
there.
So that's really nice. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. All right, so now it's time of anxiety. All right. Okay. So we're going to drop in here. Right there. Okay. fatigue is always a symptom of something being very wrong with you. If you are fatigued all the time, and you probably need to go get yourself checked out. It's either a psychological condition or a medical condition, and that's a big problem. Like, I would highly suggest you getting help. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting help. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this. Difficulty concentrator is the last one. Okay, so I'm gonna go back up here. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of doing this segment, is so that way you can get the help you need, you know? Because a lot of people are just either down on mental health or, you know, just not good. That's why we're doing the segment. I feel like it's important, especially with everything that's been going around, at least in our community, nationwide. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a big problem. Irritability, restlessness, becoming less social. Okay, let's see where we're at with that. Okay, so that's probably going to be a new line. Cut that, drop that in, because I think everything else fits.
And oftentimes too, we see people with anxiety that seem to be really angry a lot of times when things go wrong. They seem to get really upset, and oftentimes upset in a way that's out of proportion of what's happening. So, you know, kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, if you will.
So when it comes to a crisis, there are several different things that you can do.
One of the things that we think about is like chronic worrying, everything's an oil spill, sometimes over-interpreting events as being threatening or perhaps harmful. And oftentimes too, we see people with anxiety that seem to be really angry a lot of times when things go wrong. They seem to get really upset, and oftentimes upset in a way that's out of proportion of what's happening. So, you know, kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, if you will.
So when it comes to a crisis...
And he said worrying. I'm going to add excessive worrying in here, only because I feel like it's one of those things... He said it. It's not in this list because this is not a comprehensive list. This is a list that I'm compiling as we go. So... Nope, not there. There. Perfect. I'm a fan.
People that are suffering from depression, things to look out for would be withdrawing socially, you know, people who don't seem to be finding pleasure in things that they normally did. People, we could expect to see things like isolating, and students especially would see things like maybe a drop in grades when they normally did well, not...
Cool. All right, I'm loving all that. So we got a big section in there where we don't necessarily have to worry about a lot of B-roll or cuts because it's all just one thing. Don't have to worry about what's underneath. Moving on to where we need to make more cuts.
So when it comes to a crisis, there are several different things that you can do. What I would highly recommend is reaching out to, if you're in an area where you're with the person, you know that they're safe, there's nothing around that they can use to harm themselves, and you are going to be with them the entire time to make sure of that, then you can certainly call the crisis number. And that's different depending on... Then you can certainly call the crisis number.
So here's what I'm gonna do. Since I'm going to put a crisis hotline number on screen for our particular area, I don't want to call the crisis hotline. I don't need that right now. I'm doing just fine, thanks. All right. Let's add back in some stuff. Use the blue again because I really like that. I really like that look. I think it looks super cool. We're not going to need it anywhere near the length of time that we needed it before, which is nice.
If you're in an area where you're with the person, you know that they're safe, there's nothing around that they can use to harm themselves, and you are going to be with them the entire time to make sure of that, then you can certainly call the crisis number. And that's different depending on what area you're in. But a quick Google search.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back. We're going to say insert generated medium, legacy text, add, okay. Again, we're going to make this fit. So I can't tell you what text size is going to work best on screen right now. I have absolutely no clue because we just don't know. However, what I do know is that I want to start from the center, and as we go out, build from there. Now I'm going to change the safe zone to 5%. I'm going to get back over here. I'm going to type in 1-800-273-8255. That is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number. That is what we would want someone to call in case that they were thinking that they were going to do something rash. And that's always good. We're going to find a couple other numbers too, so that way it's not all alone. I've got another. Got another one. This is from the website. And then we will put that number on screen as well. And that's how we're going to address this situation, because there's not really much else for us to say about it except put that information on screen and hope that it gets somebody's attention. They may be watching it, they may not, but hopefully with this segment that they may get the help that they need. That's the plan, at least. All right, what I'm gonna do with these numbers is I'm gonna make them bigger because there's less of them. I just made them smaller by accident. That's fine. There we go. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna make this a third line. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna bump them up to 48 because they are bigger. Perfect. That's awesome. All right, so filled up the screen with it. Made it look good.
And that's different depending on what area you're in. But and that's different depending on what area you're in. But a quick Google search, you should be able to find out what the crisis number is in your community. And typically what they do, they have someone who will get on the phone with the individual, talk with them to see if this is a situation where they need to come out and either do a
okay. I'm going to split, flip it again.
Out and either do a plan of safety to make sure that they're okay.
I don't know why it's flipping to that every time I save, but hey, I'm just gonna let it roll. I don't care. All right, and I'm hitting Control S, so you hear me clicking. That's me hitting Control S, so that way I can, you know, Lane's hosting me, yay! And other people are viewing me. How's it going, peoples? All right, so back to what I'm doing.
And either do a plan of safety to make sure that they're okay until they can get in to see a therapist or a provider, or they will go ahead and consider hospitalization at that time. If you are in a situation where you don't...
All right, so I'll move the camera there to try to square her up a little bit better on screen. So it is advisable for me to throw in another cut and move it. So that way you don't see that.
If you are in a situation...
Okay, let me back that up because that doesn't look quite right.
At that time. If you are in a situation where you don't feel...
And never, when you're editing video, never try to cut when someone's blinking, because...
If you are in a situation where
you...
at that time.
Blink.
If you are
blink,
in a situation where you don't...
if you cut on a blink, it'll make you...
If you can get them to an emergency room safely, they certainly can get treatment there. If you don't feel like you can get them to an emergency room safely, then I would certainly consider calling 911 if you feel like it's reached that point.
Oftentimes with family, it's amazing how we all kind of do our part to kind of cover up things that are going wrong. And I think oftentimes with a family as well, we're often afraid to acknowledge things as they're happening because we're thinking, well, it'll just get better, or maybe this will go away. It's almost you're afraid of if you acknowledge what's happening that you're giving it more power, or if I acknowledge that this person's depressed and that it's really happening. Listening to like those subtle cues that people give us all the time in conversation, you know, like, I just don't feel well, and kind of following up with that as opposed to just taking that as a bit of information and then casting it away. You know, I think often, not only with family, but people in general, as opposed to really listening when we're having conversations, we're often just waiting on our turn to speak and we're formulating a response. And so I think one of the big things you can do for a family member, if you do suspect anything, is just to really key in and listen and be present and hear what they're saying, as opposed to thinking of what clever thing I'll be saying next.
I think the one thing that I would tell people about mental health certainly has to do with the slogan at the company that I work with now. There is
that, as opposed to just, this will go away. It's almost you're afraid of if you acknowledge what's happening, that you're giving it more power, or if I acknowledge that this person's depressed and that it's really happening.
All right, so we'll do that, and then we'll throw in another flip.
Press and that it's really happening. Listening to like those subtle cues that people give us all the time in conversation, you know, like, I just don't feel well, and kind of following up, taking that as a bit of information and then casting it away. You know, I think often, not only with family, but people.
Okay, so on the reintroductions, what I'm gonna do is, do it down here, I guess. No, I'm not gonna do that right now.
going to be with them and either do.
So I've got a limited amount of B-roll. Oh, I've got 29 minutes till I need to be on that call. So I can only do this for about 29 more minutes. All right, here we go. I have stock footage in here, but I don't remember exactly what I have. I've got 5 pieces. Okay. Let me see what I've got. Sad panda. It's that one lady crying over and over again. I think I'm gonna drop this in right here and just say, this is how we're gonna get in and out of this.
Or maybe this will go away. It's almost you're afraid of if you acknowledge what's happening that you're giving it more power, or if I acknowledge that this person's depressed and that it's really happening. Listening to like those subtle cues that people give us all the time in conversation, you know, like, I just don't feel well, and kind of following up with that, as opposed to just taking that as a bit of information and then casting it away.
All right, so that's where that's gonna go.
One of the benefits of
certain medications, and we're willing to do our part for.
So we'll use this clip for this.
Medications, and we're willing to do our part for the most part.
So I'm gonna cover this cut pretty well.
When it comes to the brain, we consider that to be a whole nother ballgame, but it pressure, and we all understand that may require diet, exercise, certain medications, and we're willing to do our part for the most part to try to improve that. But for some reason, when it comes to the brain, we consider that. But for some reason, when it comes to the brain,
so that's definitely what I want to come back to.
Prove that. But for some reason, when it,
because that's a statement. That's one of those that like it grabs your attention. But for some reason, like you're like, okay. All right, let's see what else we can do in here.
I think that there's a pretty big stigma still nowadays with people seeking help.
it may be a little bit more of a crucial situation. If you can get them to an emergency room safely, they certainly can get treatment there. If you don't feel like you can get them to an emergency room safely, then I would certainly consider calling 911 if you feel like it's reached that point.
Oftentimes with family, it's amazing how we all kind of do our part to...
Okay, so one more thing on the end that we always do, we add in like how to find out more information about whatever it is they're talking about. So like the last thing on screen is that if you're having a problem, we want someone to come check it, check in and make sure you're all right.
My website is johnnicholspsychotherapy.com. I have a private practice in the Brentwood area. You can easily go to my website and you can book your own appointments there. Also, my office number is 615.
Here's what we're gonna do. So, John Nichols. Always, when you're putting text on screen, inside of a URL, you want to make sure that you capitalize letters. Otherwise, it is very, very, very hard to read. Very hard to read. And people don't want to read all that. They don't want to make their life harder. So do that. It makes life
People within
much better
24
all
hours
around.
after they leave a message.
So if you are looking to find out more about me and my services, I work for a company here, like I said, in Columbia, Tennessee called Mental Health Cooperative. The number there is 931-380-3449. I also, if you're interested in becoming a psychiatric nurse practitioner, I also teach at the
So we're going to say Mental Health Cooperative. Like, I cannot spell for a minute. And I'm going to Google that just to double check the number, because sometimes people are wrong, man. I have typed out stuff that people have said and they say the wrong thing. So, it's not intentional. They don't know if they're doing it. Perfect. Bam, done.
called Mental Health Cooperative. The number there is 931-380-3449. I also,
See that breath we can cut there.
One of the things that we think about is like chronic worry and everything's in oils.
All right.
Mentally healthy, if you're not able to manage your moods and behaviors in a functional way, then everything else falls apart too. I think that there's a pretty big stigma still nowadays with people seeking help for mental health issues. What I tell people in my practice is everybody has stuff.
Thanks, Elaine.
You know,
Thanks for hosting me.
we all have
I'm
things that we carry around with us that are not working for us anymore, you know, and I feel like one of the benefits of counseling is to help get these naturally occurring moods and behaviors that are getting out of whack and putting them back in.
a therapist or a provider, or
All right, so use one of these other sad scenes we got going on. Yeah. Sadness. All right. I said that like I fed on it or something. Sadness.
or they will go ahead and consider hospitalization at that time. If you are in a situation where you don't feel like you have that amount of time, or it may be a little
That
bit
B-roll
more
for
of a crucial
days.
situation, if you can get them to an emergency room safely, they.
Let's see what else I got down here. I like that other one better. I think that's good.
And so I think one of the big things you can do for a family member, if you do suspect anything, is just to really key in and listen and be present and hear what they're saying, as opposed to thinking of what clever thing I'll be saying that.
And find out more about our program and what it is that we do there.
Okay, so the music basically ends here. It just fades for a while. so
And
we're
what it
gonna
is
tag
that
on
we
the
do
end.
there.
Bam, done. All right. Coming back, let's double check everything, make sure everything's in place, and this segment's pretty much done.
Clinical
And I'll show you
psychotherapist.
some render and export settings so that way you can kind of see
Letizia Baxter Smith.
what that looks like, at least for us.
Exercise certain medications, and we're willing to do our part for the.
So that's about all the B-roll I got for this, unfortunately. There's not really a lot going on. As you can see, the timeline here, we have on each layer, video track 1 is all of our extra text for our B-roll. Video track 2 is an opacity layer for black to be able to see the text, against layer 3 right now, for at least this portion, is the background, B-roll, and titles. Track 4 and 5 are video tracks that are split A and B. Now I could have done an A-B track scenario, but I'm not going to do that because that's ridiculous. I'd rather just flip them back and forth. It's way easier to edit that way. In my opinion, takes less time. Track 6 is our first audio track. It is our narrative track. And track 7 is our music bed with 3 different pieces of music. Everything's been cut together. This segment is pretty much done. It's about the best we're going to get, at least for the moment, without thinking about anything overly complicated. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to render this. So in Vegas, you go to File, Render As. The thing that we use for this is this XDCam MPEG 4 file. 35 megabits per second is a huge file, but I'm using that for archival purposes. And the reason why I'm doing that is so that if I need it later for something else, I have it ready to go. And I already know where the segment's going to go in the show. I already know what order everything's going to go in. So I know exactly what's going to happen with the rest of this, which you'll see over the course of this week. You won't see 2 of the segments being edited. Quan is going to do those. Maybe if he can get on here and, you know, maybe make him do some stuff on here. Do some stuff on Twitch. But tonight I'll be editing another piece, not of this show, but of a church video that I'm putting together for them to rebuild part of their building. So that'll be quite interesting. And I have a team call to go get on. Thanks for joining me for an hour or so. It's been about 50 minutes. I will catch you later, either with another video exactly like this, editing, putting stuff together, watching that work, or maybe playing a video game, maybe even later. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to hang out and hope for the best, if you will. And I will talk to you lovely people a little bit later tonight. Thanks for watching.